Om Shanti. Good morning. First thing to check, of course, is translation. Is everybody getting translation? Yes? Excellent. Good. For those of you who don't know me and wonder what this brother's doing up here, my name is Mathew, and I've been with Baba for 23 years. And 16 of those years have been spent at the Global Retreat Centre in Oxford, which was our first retreat centre. And I'm still there, enjoying my Brahmin life. And I'd like to share a few things with you this morning, along the lines of an approach, I think, that is rather sort of pioneering in a sense that it's a little bit about empowering people rather than talking at them, which is a little bit difficult to do in this kind of situation because it's a very class-like situation. I'd prefer it if we could all sort of meet on the same level and workshop it a bit more, but I realise the technical difficulties with language, etc. So this really relies on a lot to do with you participating in a mental sense with your consciousness, because what we're going to examine is a way of looking at the Murli and playing with it that requires us to start to use our own mind to explore a little bit where we're going, what we're here for, and to use Baba's Murli as a catalyst to take us on that journey, which it does every day. And my particular interest is exploring the Murli. It's been my sort of way to come close to Baba. And as Baba was saying in today's Murli, anything to do with the yagya gives us an opportunity to have remembrance. So you thought it was all about yoga. Well, yoga's incorporated in many different ways, because after all, yoga is connection, is remembrance. So if I'm incorporating anything of Baba's world into my life, then it's helping me, definitely helping me to remember Baba and ultimately helping me to reach my own destination. So the first thing that maybe you could participate in if you'd like to, it's not compulsory, if you've all got pens and paper, is to start using a process that is known as journaling. Journaling is very different from note-taking. Some of you may be familiar with journaling. Note-taking is where I just hear a point, I hear something that the speaker says in the talk or whatever, and it touches me and then triggers off a whole set of responses. Whereas journaling is more of a sort of feeling experience, sort of capturing a snapshot of something, and balancing up the two sides of the brain, so that yes, I'm intellectually understanding something, but I'm also feeling it, which Baba's encouraging us to do. It's not just good enough to intellectually understand something, but we should feel it and incorporate it in our lives in that way. When I'm journaling, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm capturing all those wonderful points or things that I like. It's also important that I capture the things that I don't like, the things that challenge me, maybe set me off on a different track, because everything is an opportunity for self-examination. And that's what we're going to be looking at through this Murli this morning. Because everything that comes in front of us is operating like a mirror. It's giving us an opportunity to see ourselves in different ways and respond accordingly. So it's giving me some kind of idea, whether it's in Madhaban, I find the bed's too hard, or the food's not quite to my liking, or the sanskars of another soul are a little bit difficult. Whatever it is, it's always an opportunity to explore it and see what it is within myself that needs adjusting or sorting out in order for me to resonate more effectively with life. And the key criteria, as Baba's always pointing out in the Murli, of course, is love. You know, everything happens in the drama, and the drama is fixed. And we're playing our fixed roles as actors, as Bubba says. And so if we incorporate that idea with love into our lives, we shouldn't, in practice, get upset about anything. But of course we do, we get affected by things. So what we're going to do is I'm not going to do too much talking, hopefully. There'll be little bits and pieces of talking just to set the scene. And then we'll be doing some reflective work, and then we'll be exploring that. And you will be responding to whatever happens, whether it's something that you feel or something that you hear or something that you think about. It's an opportunity to track your own thoughts and feelings and see how you personally take Bubba's knowledge, what you do with it, or alternatively what you're prepared to do with it. Because one of the most exciting things about the Confluence Age is that we have the opportunity to recreate ourselves. And the Murli is a material for that. And so just by taking something that Bubba offers us, we can create whatever we want in our spiritual life, which then of course becomes the foundation of our many lives and is now obviously the culminating at the end of the cycle in this particular birth. So just for a moment, let's just take the topic, and the topic today is road closed. And I chose that bit from the Murli because one of the things that is very powerful in Bubba's Murli is imagery. And there's a lot of imagery in the Murlis. And if you are artistic or creative, and we all are in some sense, we might not paint or draw or make music, but we all have the potential to create, then this offers us an opportunity to move into a slightly different space than the intellectual space, where there are no real determined boundaries, and it allows us to be much more flexible. So the combination of this and some practical knowledge is a very powerful tool. Road closed, what does this sort of bring up for you? It depends on what's happening, doesn't it? I mean, if you're going on a journey and you've got your route planned and you come to this sign, road closed. I remember this happened to me many years ago when I was living in Singapore. We travelled up the Penang Highway, some of you may be from Malaysia, which is a pretty long highway in those days, many hundreds of miles I think. And we got halfway up it and the road was closed. And it was the only road. And so we had to divert through the jungle, and it was a pretty hairy trip because they were actually taking down bridges. And so they had to put these bridges up temporarily for us to cross, and the whole journey was a real adventure. And so if you're an adventurous person, you're quite prepared to go off route and explore. But also, as Bubba's pointing out in today's Murli, you know, in this particular instance, we're also prepared to go in the direction of distractions. Are you one of those people that goes out to do something and then you see something else and then you deviate from it? Or you're meant to do a job and you deviate from that, something distracts you that's more interesting. And so just think about it for a moment. What does this mean to you? Distraction, road closed. I'm going along and suddenly I have no access. What is your response? Looking for alternatives, yeah. So just brainstorm for a moment on your piece of paper the connections that this brings up. For example, route, destination, GPS is one that I came up with. You've got your sat-nav now, you can be taken directly to where you need to go. And different things about this whole thing of connection and route, access, bridges, connections, relationships. Because this is what happens when we are listening. It is triggering off responses in us, and they're meaningful to us in different ways. They're giving us signposts. For example, road closed might mean, that it's stopping me doing something that I want to do. It might be a negative connotation to it. No entry. But like Sister said down there, an opportunity for me also to see what other opportunities can arise out of it, go round it, go in a different direction. So in terms of this, just for reflection for a moment, I'd just like you to look back over your life and see if you can track your own route that brought you to Baba. What were the things that stopped you going in certain directions? I know what they were for me. Certain things led me to this path. And at the time, I tried to resist them, but ultimately I reached here. What were the things that came up for you on your journey? Because we're on that journey. So just take your minds back to this birth. I wouldn't imagine that you can remember much of your previous births, but certainly that search was on in some way. See what comes up on your paper. See what emerges. What strong signs were there? Yeah, we're just reflecting and writing. It's a continuous process of I'll do a little bit of talking, a little bit of reflection, a bit of writing, just sort of go with it, sort of like a flow. It's just a new way of working. Normally you're just sitting there writing down points, but in this particular instance, we require you to use your brain a little bit more, or rather your feelings and experiences. And it's only for your own purpose. So, sorry, yeah. No, I'm saying, what do you think were the choices that you made? What came up as signposts that sent you in certain directions? Because in retrospect, of course, we know that the path is already defined, because that's the nature of a predetermined drama. But it's interesting to see, in retrospect, to look back at our journey so far. That's the first step. And to see how it's brought us to this point, because it also gives us a little bit of clarity to enable us to see how we make those decisions and in what direction we're going now. I know we're with Baba, but what's going to happen for us as individuals? And looking at those signposts, looking at those alternatives, would I have taken any other direction? Okay, we're going to examine another angle, because this will set the context for the whole process. And that is, often Baba speaks of the 3 dots, or the 3 points. And I've been using this recently generally for teaching Lokik people, from the first few lessons, because I think one of the most necessary things at present that we're lacking, not just people outside but also in the Brahmin family, has always been the missing ingredient, or the ingredient that really needs developing, and that is spiritual power. We all have lots of knowledge. We all know Baba's Murli's inside out, and we can quote all the points. But one of the problems that we tend to have, it's a generalization, but for quite a few of us, is good yoga. And so what I thought we'd look at now, because this Murli was predominantly about remembrance, was to look at how we can empower that process a little more by making it a bit more natural, in a way that you can also share with your students and friends and people without feeling that you are coming across like a Jehovah's Witness or somebody who wants to convert somebody into a religion, but more in a way that people feel that they're getting an experience, because that is what Baba's talking about in many Murlis as an important criteria at the present time, is experience. One of those elements is space, time, silence, stillness. And within those 3 points, it's incorporating that space that's going to allow us to have that experience. We're very involved in sound, noise, creating lots of things to fill that space. But we want to reduce that in order to have the experience, and then that gives us the power. So the first dot, of course, is the dot of the self. And we are operating from that space. That's us. Each one of us, unique individuals, unique souls. And whatever's going on in there, whatever's going on in here is my world. And it is completely generated by my sanskars. And they are eternal, so they're also fixed. As Denise often says in her classes, you can't cut away the bad ones, leaving you with the good ones. They're all there. And so you have to accept them all as they are. And so in terms of the self, this is what Baba was talking about also in the Murli today, about the option of filling myself, and also the options of using certain sanskars and not others. And so the fast route to transformation is only realization, is awareness, is recognition that the other things are useless. And so as long as I keep pursuing them, I'm going to be wasting my time. I'm wasting my energy and losing my power. And if I want to do that, it's fine, there's no problem. But when I recognize that, then I'm ready to change. And that's what's empowering about this process. But in order to do that, I have to be still. Because, of course, we know that these sanskars, these negative sanskars that are acquired, or rather empowered, or the latter part of the cycle, are on the surface because they're the last ones we've used. As Bubba said, you've been playing with those for 63 births. So what I have is a choice. That's all, a choice. I can choose this or that. Now, intellectually, I understand that, yes, the ones that Bubba talks about are the ones that are going to give me that benefit, what I really require. But how much do I actually believe that? How much do I actually buy into that? Because to the extent that I do, is the extent that I will follow what Bubba says. So as we're going through this, just track it for yourself and see where you are in that space, because it's your own journey, it's not my journey. And we're just using ideas in order to trigger off some kind of response in each of us. And that's all that's happening. So the important thing is that we all appreciate that we want to be a loving, joyful personality. And so, as I said earlier, love is one of the major keys in this process, because it's going to enable me to change myself naturally. But in order to do that, I've got to love myself. And love is, of course, allied to respect. And I always remember Daddy Janki saying about 4 or 5 years ago, probably 98% of Brahmins don't have any self-respect. Which is understandable, because we've come from on a long journey from a vast difference between what we are and what we were. So, self-respect, how is your self-respect? You can ask yourself this question. And what's it based on? Is it based on your role in the center, or how clever you are at something? How much people like you, your personality? And if it is, it doesn't matter. What's important is that you recognize it. You say, yes, I am taking a sense of my respect from my job or something. Because this is another part of this authenticity, is that I've got to be real about myself. Not in a way that I'm beating myself up about my rubbish, but at least I'm acknowledging it. Because if I don't acknowledge it, I'm not going to understand it and put it on one side. So check yourself. How authentic do you think you are? These are called reflective questions, and Bubba uses reflective questions throughout the Murlis, especially in Avyak Murlis, and they're wonderful triggers for meditation experiences. We'll see what we got on from today. Have you blocked all relationships and all paths or not? Have you blocked all relationships and all paths or not? So the first step with the self is, if you want to try this exercise, and we can work through it as we go, is draw a little circle and put I in the middle of it. Little circle in the middle of the page, put I in the middle. That's you. And then draw lots of little lines out, like a sun, of the connections that you have. That's your world. It might be to your body, it might be to your work, to your friends, to your interests, to the things that you are giving energy to. They're your creation, and you are also sustaining them. Some of them are necessary, of course, your work and sustaining your responsibilities, but there may be others there that aren't. They may be those distractions or those side roads that Baba was talking about in the Murli. But at the same time, don't worry about it. Don't say, oh no, I'm not going to acknowledge that, because you're only fooling yourself. We're all fooling ourselves if we don't acknowledge where we are. And then we won't change it. It's a state of denial. But while I'm doing this exercise, what is absolutely crucial is that I recognize who I am. Who is the one that is observing? Who am I? So your spiritual self-respect is based on the knowledge that Baba gives you about yourself. So the question is have I accepted that? If Baba says to me, which he said to me in this Murli today, the consciousness of being an angel, of being God's companion, of being a child in the company of the Father, of being an easy yogi, of being an instrument, an observer. Any one of those is an opportunity to explore yourself. And these titles are there to affirm, as an affirmation of your self-respect as a soul. And what happens, of course, is we oscillate between what Baba says we are and what we have assumed we are. So, now you've drawn in your little circle and your tentacles, you can continue to fill that in as you go through life. It's very interesting to see where your energy's going, where your power's going, and where you're also drawing power from. But what you'll also notice is that many of the things on the end of those tentacles are either things that you have or they're things that you do. They have not very much to do with what you are. And if you ever brainstorm a group of people, Logic people, anybody, about what they want from life, it's not very common that they're going to say they want lots of money or a Rolls Royce or a BMW. They're more likely to say they want things that are value-based. So looking in at the center of yourself, ask yourself the question, what are the values that are driving me as an individual? What are my primary values? Because that's the key to you as a personality. And then they're being expressed through those things that you do and have. So just relaxing and detaching for a moment. Being in that center space. I am at the center of my world. And there it is on that piece of paper in front of me. It is my creation, eternally. So how do I feel about that? Can I accept myself as I am? Because when I accept myself, I can forgive myself and let go. And when I let go, I can move forward beyond the boundaries that I've created. Am I ready to remove those boundaries? Am I ready to move forward? Because times are changing. Okay, the second element is life or drama, which incorporates everything that's happening around us. So what's that about? What's going on there? And how am I responding to that? Circumstances and situations that are changing very dramatically. How do I adjust to that? How do I work with that? Because that's very much dependent on me as an individual also. To the extent that I'm self-empowered, that I feel secure, that I feel loved, my value system is strong, I will be able to handle that effectively. And certainly one of the huge ingredients in our lives is our relationships. So ask yourself the question, how are my relationships? Because your relationships are a mirror of your relationship with yourself. And relationship is a primary issue because we are establishing divine relationships now, which is going to take us through the cycle. We are resetting those relationships. At the moment, probably 4 out of 5 marriages in the UK ends in divorce, and I think 3 in 5 marriages is one-parent families. So the whole structure of relationships is highly dysfunctional. And probably most of us are casualties in some way or another, certainly from the past in those things. We all have that experience. And one of the big things about relationships that comes with it, whether it's relationships with others or things, is attachment. And so that's going to play it's a major player in our next third element, the element of our relationship with Baba. The question is, how are our relationships? Where are they? And again, just be honest about it with yourself. It's your own observation. Because these things are all an opportunity for us to look at ourselves and see where we are, and ultimately to see where we want to be. Because we may be attached at the moment, but what is the basis of that attachment? Because attachment comes about because I'm attracted to something because I'm empty. So we're back to the power situation again. Something draws me, I take from it, and I become dependent on it. Dependence then means that I'm subservient to that, which ultimately means then I have no choice. So I will always gravitate towards that attachment. And it's important to see that, because if I want to make Baba my world, then it's necessary for me to make some adjustments. The most important being that I'm getting my sense of power, my feeling of power, my feeling of replenishment, my feelings of nourishment from Baba, and not from other people. Yet still to be loving towards others. So how do I get that balance? Have a think about that for a moment. Baba calls it loving but detached. And so what is detachment? I'm throwing out lots of these questions to get you thinking, get the mechanism going, rather than me just answer questions for you. You need to stimulate your own intellect. Sudesh gave a very nice definition of detachment, and that was to be uninfluenced, not to be separated. You know, we often think when we give people the course and we say, oh yeah, we practice detachment, people think that means to be unloving, to be disconnected. But I like this definition, uninfluenced. You're loving, you're connected, but you're not influenced by the people's sanskars. You're self-contained, you're spiritually strong. So you can move around, whether it's the Brahmin family or your Lokit connections, and you are powerfully spiritual individual. You are a loving individual. And you see this in Baba. He has those qualities, loving and detached. Okay, let's have a little meditation on that. So sitting in the center, which is the center of you, soul position, we start from the basics again. I'm aware of my life, my world, my inner world, my thoughts, my feelings, and I accept them as they are. I accept myself. And then let me, from that space, become aware of my connections. Who do I have yoga with? As a visualization, let me put myself in the position of being aware, particularly of those relationships that pull my intellect more, and see myself moving into that relationship as the detached observer. Being aware of myself as the soul, as the point of light, as a guest in this world. Moving through a series of events. I came with nothing, and I have nothing. I'm a trustee of my body, of everything. I'm even a trustee of my relationships. I see myself coming into connection with those relationships in my life. But I'm aware of myself. I'm stable in my self-respect. I am sustained. I am still. I'm connected to my heart. I open my heart. I don't hide my heart, I don't shrink. I'm open, I'm transparent. This is the nature of an angel. And then I come into connection detached and loving. I see that person in my life who is close to me. How do I feel? Can I remain uninfluenced, unaffected in their presence? When they say something, I respond from a loving space. Can I accept them as they are? One step further, can I see them as my spiritual brother? They might be my wife or my husband or my child. Do I have that soul conscious vision? And the third element, and we'll tie it together with the Murli, is of course the point Baba, the Supreme. I am like a potential. The soul is like a potential. It has the ability to express 100% that potential. But like a battery has become discharged, whereas Baba is a resource, a continuous resource that never needs replenishing. My connections with life are short-term replenishment sources. As you know, if you eat, you have to eat again. If you rest, you have to rest again. It's not that I say, well, I'll have a meal now and that's it, I won't eat again. You have to eat, you have to continue this process of drawing resources for energy. So what is this remembrance? Yoga, connection, union. It is just the ability of the soul to link to the source. As we've already had yoga just now with our relationships, we've linked our consciousness, our mind to that source. We just direct it somewhere else. And why don't we do it? Because it's slightly different. In a sense that when we remember the Lokik people that give us those feelings and those experiences, we remember their bodies, we remember their mannerisms, we remember their personalities. Many things come into our mind in that physical sense. When we're remembering Baba, it's a subtle, still experience. It's a heart experience. So we have to approach it from that angle. And that comes from silence. Creating space. An exercise I do quite a bit with people on workshops and stuff is what I call the 1 minute exercise, but it's a very good exercise to ascertain where our head space is. So we'll do it now, and you can just see for yourself and note down in your observation as you're journaling what's happening for you in this exercise. So let's just stop thinking for 1 minute. Okay, is everybody up for that? Yes? Okay, then starting from now. Okay, welcome back. Seems like hours, doesn't it? So were you successful? Yes? We can't actually stop thinking, but did you manage to sustain one thought for 1 minute? Because we are practice meditators, so if you give this exercise to Lokik people to do, they have big problems with this. And the observations are that thoughts keep coming in regardless. Noises distract you. Everything is accentuated. That means it becomes louder. You become aware of the ticking of a clock or something, or your heartbeat. Some people are using focuses. There might be a picture behind or something, or their breath, or a mantra. I must not stop, I must not think, I must not think, I must not think. Heard that mantra? You know, different things to help the process. And many think that it's impossible to do it. But the question, after traffic control, so the question is, who is trying to stop what thinking? And what's happened here is that we've naturally created a separation between thought and thinker. Which means that I'm not my thoughts. We know this because we're practicing Brahmins, but this exercise clarifies that. And it's a very useful exercise to check, like when Baba talks about traffic control, Baba talks about just a moment, just a minute, this kind of thing. It's an opportunity for us to see whether we are separating ourselves from our thoughts. Because, as you know, when the thoughts are running, we're in the movie, we're in that other element. And when we can remain separated, that is the detached observer, then we are also in the position to focus on Baba, but until we aren't, if you get what I mean. Because you have to be still, because Baba's subtle. And the other criteria is that from the element that we looked at, life, the world, we're getting all our hits from that. You know, all our addictions are coming from that. You know, whether it's the coffee or whether it's a person or whether it's the computer or something like this, or the plane journey didn't go quite right, or my bed's not comfortable, etc. All these things coming from that other element are making a noise in my head. And when the noise is in my head, I'm not going to get Baba. Yeah? And so you can see how I have to fix my focus in a different direction. If I want to experience Baba, I have to set myself up for that. Because Baba is very still. And that little exercise we've just done is showing us, once we start to extend that exercise, not to stop thinking because we can't stop thinking, but what we can do is hold the thought. And when we hold the thought, Baba's there. the thought is Baba. And many of the other things Baba was talking about in today's Murli, associated to Baba, are an opportunity for us to go into that space. So what's also important is that if I want to sustain my Brahmin life, and Baba is the center of my Brahmin life, then I've got to be in Baba's world. Not in that other world, because Baba's not interested in that. Do you understand? Do you see what I'm getting at? And so what is also important is that Baba's world for me becomes interesting. Because this computer might be more interesting than Baba at the moment. And so what's going to happen is my intellect's going to, like Baba said, going to be pulled, going to be distracted by other things because they're more exciting than Baba is. And yet, if I can divert my attention to Baba, then what happens is that I start to fill up with that power from Baba, and then naturally, and this is what easy remembrance is, naturally I'll want to go into that space. This will be just a tool. It won't be my attraction any longer. It'll be just something that's there for me to use. It's necessary. It helps me do my work or whatever. But it will no longer be the center of my existence. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go into that space for a moment, and you're just going to see how easy or difficult it is for yourself. And don't worry about it if it's not working. That's also okay. Don't beat yourself up about it, the fact that your yoga may not be what you think it is. That's not a problem. There are no problems. There are only solutions. And so when we're in that space, we can say, right, well, my yoga isn't really what I would like it to be. It's not as powerful, it's not as loving, it's not as what, that's fine. But at least I'm interested in making it better. I'm interested in examining how I can be an easy yogi. That's why we're here, in Madhavan, in the Brahmin world. So what we need to do for this is just a little bit of preparation. Make sure you're physically relaxed. Stretch your feet and neck and whatever it is. Take a couple of deep breaths. And we're just going to employ nothing but silence, no music, no sounds except the pigeons or whatever else is happening. Breathing, which is essential. And first of all, the acknowledgement of everything, acknowledgement of what's out here. We've looked at that, the world life drama. It's going on absolutely as it should do. The question is, am I prepared to accept it as it is? Whatever's happened, good, bad or indifferent, is all drama, no problem. Whatever I've done, good, bad or indifferent, is all part of drama, no problem. Let go. Full stop. Because if I don't, I bring it with me. And if I bring it with me, I can't have yoga. So let's pull ourselves into this moment, and this is what we call being in the now. And the now means that there is nothing else except for this. And that I've just said is now the past. I'm here in this body, in this room, with these other souls. I accept. I let go. I reduce my thoughts. I just bring myself to the center of my forehead. I detach from this body. This body isn't me. Temporary costume, changing by the second. I'm sitting in it, I'm looking out. I hear the birds, background noises, but I'm quiet inside. Thoughts are reducing. Acknowledge the thoughts. The mind is like a child. Don't try to assassinate it. Don't try to suppress your thoughts because they'll never go away. Just acknowledge them, but don't give them any attention. There they go. Fine, no problem. There goes another one. And just be still. And just be aware of what's happening inside of you. Keep coming back to be still, centered, sustaining that one thought, Baba and I, the soul. Be aware of the stillness that underpins the sound that you're hearing. It's almost as if we're dropping down to a subtle level, a subtle experience. Start to feel the body more sensitively. Don't expect anything to happen. Why should it? But just be open and receptive. Start to dismantle the intellectual boundaries that may be in place. Things like, oh, maybe I can't do this. Or, am I meant to be experiencing this? There are no questions, no analysis. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's a feeling exercise. It's just I, the soul, and Baba. So just open up the heart. Really open the heart now. Free it. Feel the other structure like scaffolding just being dismantled, taken away, and you are going to be spiritually exposed. Spiritually naked. You're on display for what you are. Not hiding behind any masks. See how that feels. I am what I am. Now invite Baba in. Feel Baba touching that heart and giving you that love. Very gentle. Very soft. Feel that heart growing, expanding with that love. Feel it filling the soul. Feel it replacing all those other things that you've tried so hard to get rid of. Healing, nourishing. Just keep connected and it will keep coming as much as you want. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just let it come. Let Baba touch the soul. Fill the soul. Purify the soul. Feel yourself sparkling. And start to bring that energy back to a grounded place. And spend a moment just reflecting on what happened, and you can jot down anything that you observed that might be useful. Good, bad, or indifferent. And we can now see how we can tie that in with the Murli. I have to develop this subtle relationship to such an extent that it becomes natural. It becomes natural when I want to do it. So what is my motivation? If I'm not that interested, it's not going to happen. So easy remembrance just means natural remembrance. It's just like you would remember somebody that's close to you. Just remember Baba in the same way. And then you have Baba's company with you. And there's automatic remembrance. Your intellect is with Baba. Whether it's in Baba's knowledge, Baba's service, Baba's family. All the aspects cover all our lives. And the moment, as Baba said in today's Murli, we open up another road, another avenue, then the intellect goes there. And of course this will continue to happen. So I'm liberated from those difficulties when I close those paths. But as I said earlier, it has to be done with understanding. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. You know, people who are alcoholics, if they join Alcoholics Anonymous, they make a pledge that they will never drink again, they will never go in a bar or anything. Because only then can they sustain that promise. And they do that because they recognize they've reached a point where they cannot continue in that way any further. So another reflective question from today's Murli: what else is there apart from Baba? And that's a very interesting question. Because I had a thought once that probably, for half the cycle, we are searching for the relationship that we have with Baba at this time. Of course, we never find it. But it becomes the primary criteria for all our relationships. So subconsciously we are judging all relationships on the basis of that relationship with God, because it is the perfect relationship. And so any other relationship is going to be inferior to that relationship, even as a first birth deity. And when we put relationships into that kind of context, it shows us just how important it is to pursue this relationship with Baba, because ultimately that will give us our sense of self. That will give us our sense of fulfillment. As you see with the seniors, Daddy G, and those of you who saw Daddy G and Daddy Jenkin, these people, They have that kind of relationship. And yet they're loving and they're knowledgeable souls. They have boundless energy. They serve unconditionally because they've got that connection and they're taking that power. So, I think we're nearly finished. Have you got any questions or comments before we finish off? So you all took notes in the Murli, and so probably. And so it's about utilising what we have in the Murli in a practical way in your life. How is that going to work as an effective tool in whatever I'm doing? In Madhaban it's slightly different because we're in a spiritual context. We're surrounded by Brahmins, we're in Baba's world, and so everything is geared up towards that experience. But of course, when we go back to our centres and our lives, we have a dual role. And that's why the Murli becomes an important tool, but only to the extent that it's incorporated into our lives in that way. Does that make sense? So, any questions, any comments? Is that useful? I just thought we'd do something different than a talk, because you get people sitting in front of you all the time doing talks, so, and we can't really do a workshop. Yes, Vickles? That's the nature of the triangle. What you're doing is you are using Baba as the filter to have those relationships through. So you're taking your power from Baba, you're seeing things through Baba's eyes, you're living in Baba's world, but Baba is the father of all souls, the mother of all souls. He is linked eternally to all souls anyway. So that when you are linked to Baba, then you're automatically linking those souls to Baba also. So your relationship is with Baba, but it's also with the world. They're your divine family. So it's not that you separate them from the equation, not at all. That's why we do service. Well, people around you is the same thing. If you've got Baba with you, then what's going to happen? If Baba is a major player in your relationship, you know what people are like when they're in love or when they're content with themselves, then when they come in, if you are coming across as somebody who is stable in their self-respect, somebody who is a loving individual, when you come into relationships with other people, then that's what you're going to express. But of course, if something's not going right in your life, then you're also going to be expressing that. So it's very much dictated to about how you are and how the sustenance that you're getting as an individual, how you then reciprocate that experience with your relationships. So Baba's going to give you power, stability, love, support, and as a nourished soul, as a sustained individual, you will then be able to sustain others and develop full relationships with those people, as the daddies do. The daddies are great examples of that. They treat everybody with that respect. They treat everyone as part of Baba's family. When you come in, Daddy doesn't ignore you and talk to somebody else or whatever. They're open, receptive and accepting because of their relationship with Baba. So it's what Baba calls a combined form. Having Baba with you as your companion, as Baba said in today's Murli. Anything else? Clear as mud? Anyway, it's just an exploration, just to get you exploring the ideas. The idea is to stimulate you a little more so that you then go and explore it for yourself and see if it works or it doesn't work for you. That's the idea of why we have all these lectures and workshops and things. They give us an opportunity to grow spiritually and discover for ourselves how we should approach our spiritual lives, what's good for us, what helps us. We're all unique individuals, and so different things will work for different souls. So just play and enjoy. We have a moment to finish off. So just going back into that still space. And any opportunity you get around Madhaban and all Baba's places are little energy pockets that allow us to charge up, like these charging points you see at airports. You just go and connect your computer or your mobile phone and charge it. So you can go to Baba's room and all the different places and just go in there and draw that power. Fill yourself in that still space. Om Shanti. Enjoy your Madhaban.